Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Player Profiles. I'm Joseph Potter. Well, preseason profiles, but seems to be the way this morning's been going. A little bit razzled here. Preseason Reports 2017. Today, I've got TJ and Chris once again joining me, and we're going to be going an extra long little show for you guys, little extra tidbits, and we're going to start off with some things that Chris and myself have been following for the last month and a half, 2 months, and that would be Mr. Sam Darnold, quarterback USC. And Chris, why don't you let us all know what Darnold's been up to here this summer, and then we can get into what this means for him.
Well, Sam Darnold has about 10 strengths, 5 weaknesses as far as tape goes, and I believe at least 3 to 5 of those weaknesses are correctable. You look at the tape, inconsistent accuracy. There are times where Darnold is money. Short, medium, deep ball accuracy. He has a stagger for an arm. He can fire those passes. At the same time, there are plays where he throws incompletions on screen passes. He misses a read. He overthrows a wideout. Some of this can be attributed to drop passes by his targets last year, but a lot of it can be attributed to just basic fundamentals because Darnold only took 6 sacks last year. The other 4 issues involve his mechanics, which are just atrocious, like you said. His delivery can be erratic at times. The 4th mistake is sometimes he places the ball too low and scrambling on the run. His ball placement when throwing is absolutely superior to any of the quarterbacks in last year's draft, but his ball placement when scrambling, he places the ball too low. And the final observation I found with Darnold is while he can make the 1-step, 3-step, 5-step drops in terms of footwork, he has trouble with 7-step drops. So he has worked with quarterback coach Jordan Palmer, who coached Deshaun Watson last year, and he has adjusted his throwing motion, gone through a transition. We'll have to wait and see if the transition pays off because the Trojans, they open up at home at the LA Coliseum against the Western Michigan Broncos, and the Western Michigan Broncos have 2 NFL prospects at cornerback and safety on their secondary. I don't know what rounds they're projected in, but they're prospects on the radar. So Darnold's going to be tested often and early in that game. And if he can carve that team, play turnover-free football, make great reads, great decisions, you're talking about a quarterback that can make 4 progressions before taking off and runs and develop that 5th progression this year, 6th once he gets to the NFL or if he returns to college. You are looking at a pretty complete prospect on paper. And if working with Jordan Palmer is going to help Darnold correct all of those weaknesses, it's understandable why people like Daniel Jeremiah are calling him the best prospect since one. I think it's too early to buy into that hype, but at the same time, if he busts his tail and corrects those weaknesses that Palmer helped him with, people that are comparing this guy to Luck are going to look like rocket scientists. But it's a wait-and-see thing. I don't think Darnold's on that level yet, but again, wait-and-see approach, and better throwing motion can lead to a lot of the issues Darnold has in terms of mechanics that I've described. What are your thoughts on Sam Darnold, Joey?
Well, I think everybody knows my thoughts on Sam Darnold at this point. Anybody who listens to this broadcast, anybody who listens to the Draft Utopia podcast, they know my thoughts. But here's the X factor, Jordan Palmer. Now, Jordan Palmer from 2008, 2010, and 2014. He played from 2008 through 2012 or 13 with the Cincinnati Bengals. He played his last 2 seasons as a professional with the Tennessee Titans. Jordan Palmer is the younger brother of Arizona star, former Bengals star Carson Palmer. Jordan Palmer, 6th round pick, number 205 by Washington. Don't think he ever played with Washington. His career stats, unremarkable. He was a total of, I think, 11 for 18 with no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. No fumbles. but as a coach, he is one of the most well-respected coaches in getting young players the ability and getting young players he has an ability to get young players the mechanics they need to succeed, whether it be college, professional, high school, whatever, whoever comes to him. So Jordan Palmer right now is the X factor. Darnold has intangibles that are all world, but he has mechanics of a junior high quarterback. Believe me, I've coached a few of them, to say the least. So, the X factor right now, whether Darnold is a first-round prospect or early first-round prospect, slips into the middle of the first to the second, is Jordan Palmer. Can Jordan Palmer turn that around after what basically the USC coaches turned their back on ever helping him because they didn't want to ruin him, which is an absolute disaster. So Jordan Palmer right now is the X factor for Darnold, a guy with all the intangibles and none of the mechanics. If Palmer can get him straightened around, Darnold will be the first overall pick, hands down. If not, somebody like Baker Mayfield or Jackson will come into the picture and end up usurping that number one spot. TJ, do you have any thoughts on Sam Darnold and the update to his profile before we move forward?
Mechanics got to be fixed. And that, I mean, his mechanics got to be fixed. Like, that's, hopefully he can improve on throwing the ball accuracy and pinpoint accuracy. Like Chris said, he had a huge problem with the seven-step drop, which is pretty bad because he can actually do a 3-step or a 5-step, but can't do a 7. So it's weird, but mechanics for sure needs to be a lot better.
And now we're going to move on to something a little bit more recent here. And we're going to go to our next player profile, which is SMU wide receiver Courtland Sutton from the SMU Mustangs. 6'4", 215 pounds from Brenham, Texas. Now, Sutton was one of the biggest targets, both figuratively and literally, during last season, not only for SMU but in college football, totaling 76 receptions, 1,246 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Now, Sutton is great with his head fakes, gets his head around. His size is absolutely amazing. As the picture here for those watching the feed will be able to see, his concentration is absolutely amazing. The jumping ability, once again, as shown in the picture, is astounding. Overall athleticism, he has excellent hands. His speed-size ratio is absolutely off the charts. I think he runs like a 4.46 or something to that degree, and excellent body control. So, I mean, yeah, he has some things to work on. He's not a great route runner. He's not a great blocker. And his consistency without the ball, especially against Baylor. I mean, sometimes if he isn't getting the ball, he'll slack off a bit. And we need to see that improved, because that just ends up messing up the rest of the team. And, I mean, right now, Sutton is my number one receiver. I know, Chris, you and myself were talking about this a little bit earlier about how he and the Texas A&M wide receiver were number 1 and 2, and can't argue with it. Two different types of receivers, but two very effective receivers. Just depends on what the team that's drafting wants at this point. And I've got to say, it's if this season should be exciting, and with those two receivers, and Sutton, I believe, will end up coming out on top of the discussion. What's your thoughts on Sutton? Chris. Okay, TJ, do you have any thoughts on Sutton?
There are two receivers in this draft class that I think are top 5 picks, named Preseason Kirk and Courtland Sutton. Preseason Kirk is 5'11", but he has great agility, exceptional route running, reminds me of Amari Cooper. Courtland Sutton, you could argue he's like Kevin White, but I don't see that at all. Because Kevin White was 6'3", this guy is 6'4", he's even bigger at 225, he's a better route runner. There is a reason Courtland Sutton, the hype behind this guy, is real, because at this point 11 months ago, Charlie Campbell of Walter Football said this guy was going to be a riser and a potential first-round pick as a sophomore redshirt. I didn't put him in any of my mock drafts because I figured he was going to go back to school for his junior redshirt season, which is exactly what happened. But he was also Matt Miller's number 1 receiver on Bleacher Report for the 2018 NFL draft. So even though I prefer Kirk as far as agility, route running, tape goes, hands, catching, ability to play outside or the inside, Courtland Sutton's the guy everyone in the media is talking about. And I apologize for mentioning Kirk because I like him better. Just don't give me the death penalty for violating this infraction. Sorry, SMU.
Yeah. Sorry, man. The death penalty has been invoked.
See why they call the comparison between him and Kevin White. 1 is 6'3", 1 is 6'4", 1 is 215, 1 is 222. So it's somewhere around the area. But all I can say for him is size advantage, hands, route running. Route running can use a little work, but overall he's an overall good receiver and should be able to. He should be able to adapt to the pros very quickly. It's not probably within like a couple weeks.
Yeah, and this is something I don't think it'll take Sutton very long, like you said, TJ, to adapt to the pros. The whole thing with Sutton, I don't know where the comparison to that other receiver came from. I'm kind of sweeping that guy under the rug. He too disappointing. I mean, it makes me cry. But agility-wise, his jumping ability, his speed, everything is head and shoulders above as far as physical ability goes. Physical ability, he is head and shoulders above any other receiver in this class. Now, when, like you said, Chris, as far as versatility, playing in the slot, route running, now that goes to Kirk. There is hands down that goes to Kirk. Sutton does round off his routes too much. I mean, anybody who watches the film will notice that. He's also got to play hard. He's got to get in there and play hard every snap. Against Baylor, that was a perfect example. He didn't play hard every snap. There were several snaps he took off, and that is just not something you can do. And that's something he has to go ahead and say, all right, I'm not going to do this anymore. There is no working on it. There is no getting better at it. When it comes to not playing every snap, it's just, I'm going to play every snap. Nothing you can do about it. That's it. So that in itself is something that we're going to have to watch and really look at. And so I'm not going to harp on it. The Kirk and Sutton at this point, they are almost like two parts of a whole. If you put them both together, you have a perfect receiver. As we know, you can't put them both together. There's no such thing as a perfect receiver. If you can make...
Before we move on to Marcus Allen,
well,
state safety, Preseason Kirk is third overall for the 49ers in my current mock draft on draftutopia.com. I also have Courtland Sutton going to the Cleveland Browns at number 5 with the Texans pick.
Yeah,
so,
and
it could be their pick too. We could also see the Browns picking in the top 5. But with one of those two first-round picks, I have the Browns taking Sutton. So obviously, I believe both receivers are that good tape-wise. Any final thoughts before we move on to Allen?
well, it's when it comes to Sutton, I wouldn't be upset if the Browns got Sutton. They need people to grow with either Kessler or Kaiser to see, whichever one ends up as a long-term starter. And right now, Kaiser's being groomed to fast track to be the starter. Doesn't mean he'll be the starter anytime this season, but he's being fast tracked that way. Now, at the same time, Kessler has improved his arm strength. So adding somebody like Sutton to go along with Corey Coleman, remember, improved arm strength is going to work because Hugh Jackson wants an offense like that Raiders team he had, which was a far more explosive offense. So adding a Sutton in that sense would be excellent because he gives you, if you add him and Coleman together, that gives you an extremely dynamic 1-2 punch. TJ, what do you think? Any last thoughts on Sutton?
Well, with everything working out, if you can get his foot in the fence in Texas, I mean, not that just really put in the fence, in NFL, or we could see him being installed like just posting back in like 05, which is what football somewhat needs. So I can't complain here. The fact that he's 6'4", and he's not as fast as Kevin White, should I say, but he's more body built, more sturdy to take hits in traffic and catch in traffic, and that's what be his game is all about, catching traffic and making the big plays to help the quarterback and help the team, which is really beautiful in the game of football. Sense of receiver.
Kevin White was so overrated. My land. Such an athletic marvel, but still so overrated. But Kevin White's inadequacies notwithstanding, and now his injuries notwithstanding, I think, Chris, I think you're absolutely right on both Sutton and Kirk. And Kirk, along with Nelson, will be part of our next round of preseason profiles when we get to those. And so now we move on to probably the most unheralded preseason profile I will have this year. Third to fourth round prospect, Penn State's best player, perhaps even a poor man's less athletic Jabril Peppers. Far less athletic Jabril Peppers, because Jabril Peppers was just flat a athletic freak of nature. You have safety Marcus Allen, Penn State, and I was actually watching a little more tape of him this morning, and there is a lot to like. But there is also a lot that, yes, which, I mean, his coverage awareness, his cover two, both terrible. He takes bad angles at times against the run, but at the same time, he's got a lot of the same strengths that Peppers did with his run defense, his tackling, his overall athleticism. I mean, see this guy without a shirt on, I mean, there's not much muscle, there's not much fat on his body, he's all muscle. His run instincts are great, he's extremely energetic, but when it comes to the pass, yeah, he makes more plays in the passing game than Peppers did, but at the same time, if you put a double route on him or something of that nature, in his way, he's gonna go for the first one. He's just not that good at it. He doesn't have the instincts in pass coverage, and and the bad part is, not only does he not have the instincts, but I'm not even sure that he really has the size needed to really get things done. Chris, what do you think about this?
Yeah, you're right about this player, Marcus Allen. The run stuffing, the intensity, the hard hitting, the tackling machine, all of that is there with Marcus Allen. I know Ryan Romero of our podcast, this is a guy he would love because he likes safeties that are hard hitters, that play with intensity, that play off the edge, sort of like Troy Polamalu. So this is a guy he would love. I think his coverage is something he needs to work on a little bit, but at the same time, this is a player that has a lot of positive qualities on tape.
Yeah, and he's only 205 pounds. I mean, that is, he's 6'2", but at only 205, he's going to take, I mean, if he wasn't basically a brick house, then he would have a lot of problems in the pros with his style. I mean, I don't think it's going to be as much of a factor as most people his size, but because of how much muscle mass he has on him. But at the same time, you got to look at everything else, and you add that together. How much is it going to affect his game? Is he going to be a pure in-box safety? Because that makes him a two-down safety. That's a 4th, 5th round grade right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the biggest question I've seen for him, is that he is potentially a two-down safety because he just doesn't have the pass instincts. He doesn't have it in pass protection. He had 0 interceptions last year. 0. The thing about that is he also only had 1 forced fumble. So he's not a turnover machine. He only had 3 pass deflections. Yeah, so his entire worth is, say, against Minnesota, he had 22 total tackles. That's where his worth is. He has a nose for the ball in the run game. Yeah, he had 22 total tackles against Minnesota. He had 10 total tackles against Indiana. He had 11 against Wisconsin. He had 9 against USC, 7 against against Michigan State. Yeah, 8 against Pittsburgh, 8 against Temple, 7 against Michigan. And it just goes on like this. I mean, his worst games, he had 3 tackles against Iowa, 1 against Rutgers, and 5 against Kent State. Other than that, he was 6 tackles or over every game. So, TJ, what do you have on him right there?
As far better at covering twos. Pretty much any of the Darnold coverage, if you ask me. I think he'll be better over time, but for right now, he's really more of a run stopper at safety.
Yeah, he has the athletic ability to become good in pass protection, but he's just not even close. He may be a Troy Polamalu type that is nothing more than a two-down safety for the first 4 years of his career, 4 or 5 years of his career. Then in the 6th year, he starts racking up all these awards. He was like 2-3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Then he retires. I mean, he only has 7-8-year career, 9-year career, whatever. But because of which was amazing for Polamalu because of style of play, even though the last 2-3 years were injury plagued. And with Allen, that may be what you're doing. You may say, we want to draft him, but it's going to take 4 or 5 years to really get anything out of him. So Chris, yeah.
Marcus Allen is just one of those players that really, really stands out in some areas. I do have quite a bit of safety ranked ahead of him in my safety rankings, but there are some positive attributes, and to be subjective and to dismiss what he can do would be foolish, because this is a guy who could correct his coverage. Maybe he doesn't have the best coverage during the regular season, but since he's a senior, he might have that window of opportunity in Mobile if he gets a Senior Bowl invite, and that's the other thing we have to look at.
Yeah, the Senior Bowl is going to be big for him as far as draft stock goes. Allen is, as far as Penn State goes, Penn State only lost 2 games last year. And the Rose Bowl, they lost the Rose Bowl to USC 52-49. But Allen's their best player. Allen has to improve in the pass game this year for Penn State to really reach their potential. They got by last year, and they got by quite well. They had an extremely talented team. TJ, where do you think Penn State ends up this year if Allen improves against the pass?
They'll have a better record. Might have a couple bowl games, but that's up to Allen to get better at what he needs to get better at, which we all know is covering this cover, 2 cover, any type of cover.
Well, yeah, having a couple bowl games in one season would be an extremely impressive feat. I mean, I don't think it's ever been done before. Last year they were in the Rose Bowl. You don't get bigger than I don't care about, a lot of teams still say, there's a national championship's good, but we'll take, a lot of Big Ten teams especially, will take the Rose Bowl over a national championship simply because it's the Rose Bowl. And getting back there, it's going to be extremely difficult. And if Sutton, geez, going back in time here about 10 minutes, and if Allen doesn't improve, I don't see him really I don't see that team really getting back there. Chris, do you see them being able to get back to the Rose Bowl if Allen doesn't improve against the pass?
Again?
If Allen can improve his pass coverage, he can get into that day 2 territory. But there are guys who just have better coverage on tape. Guys like Derwin James out of Florida State, a projected top 10 pick. Guys like Armani Watts, A&M. Jordan Whitfield out of Pittsburgh. And then you got guys like Ronnie Harrison and Quinn Blanding out of Alabama and Virginia. And Ronnie Harrison's tape is just incredible. Like, not only is he playing both safety spots, they line him up as middle linebacker. They'll use him as a situational blitzer off the edge like they did with Reuben Foster last year. So you're definitely going to want to check out Ronnie Harrison when you get the chance.
Well,
I think he could be this year's Reuben Foster as far as Alabama
Well, I was asking whether Penn State could get back to the Rose Bowl if Allen doesn't improve against the pass.
The Big Ten does have some good tight ends this year. They're not tight ends like last year's group with Jake Butt and stuff, but they're quality tight ends. So Allen's going to be tested. Nate Wozniak out of Minnesota, Ian Bunt, and Michigan is another first-round tight end in 2019. So the Wolverines have two tight ends. Ohio State, I think, has a draft-eligible tight end. So there are still going to be some quality tight ends in the Big Ten, but it's a pretty significant drop-off.
Well, Wozniak, I think, will be his toughest test because I like Wozniak. I think he can do some good things this year for Wisconsin. So
There's another guy from Wisconsin, Troy Fugamelli. That's the other tight end you were thinking of, who I really like on tape. And Nate Wozniak out of Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah. Those two guys are gonna be. They're gonna be tough to go up against, and I think those are gonna be his two biggest tests. What he does there will tell us a lot about how prepared he is in the passing game. Because when you watch him in a cover two, I mean, a lot of times cover threes only have one safety. Other times, like when you have a great strong safety, they'll use that strong safety as a nickel or a dime, depending on what it is. And like the Steelers did with Palomalu. But I'm not even sure if he's ready for that. I mean, to go against those tight ends that, slot receivers and such. So those games against those tight ends will be extremely telling. Because I believe Wisconsin is the last game of the year. So I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that. So that'll be extremely close to the end of the year, with the bowl games and everything. And that'll show how far he's come.
Hello? Are we still live, Joey?
Yeah. We never went off. I was I would have told you, Chris. Trust me, we would have had my entire outro shtick and all that other crap to go on. I have a feeling that people hear my outro and they like, oh, crap, there he goes again, and go off and does their own thing. So it's, and before we go off, I want to go over a little bit of what we have planned for the next 6 weeks or so, 7 weeks. We're going to finish out this round of preseason profiles. Probably going to be doing that next week. I've got 2 more preseason profiles to go over for this round. I think I'll bring the total to 14 or 15. And then we're going to go into preseason outlook. Preseason outlook, every week we will outlook a different NFL team. We're going to go over their offense, their defense, their coaching staff, and get you ready for the NFL season with what they do, going down from the first pick of the draft to the 32nd, or something of those. It might be the 32nd best record down to the best record.
Just like going over, is this just basically going to be a preview show instead of a prospect profile show?
No. The preseason outlook, yes. It's going to be our preseason, basically our preseason previews. It's going to be draft outlook only for the preseason. And
all right.
Then
awesome. I already have I've done 4 season previews. I have the Jets at 1-15, the Bears at 2-14, and the 49ers at 3-13. I already have those teams plotted in the top 3 teams in my mock draft prior to the season preview, so I already have an idea of who I'm going to have as my top 3 picks. I still think there's some other mysteries and question marks that are going to have to be cleared up as
And we're, yeah,
Not too short, not too long.
yeah, we're gonna go over a lot of this stuff. We're gonna take. I've already got interest for a couple of people who want to listen in from work. Then we're gonna start off with the worst team from last year, work down to the best. So we're gonna start off with the Cleveland Browns. We're gonna end it with the New England Patriots, and we're just gonna go down and we're gonna preview each team. So that is our main outlook for the next 5-6 weeks. And then we're going to go back to, and we're going to do a few more preseason profiles. And then we're going to get ready, and we're going to have our season games.
College in 2 weeks for a prospect profile. That is one thing Grace has been harping me on, like nagging.
Okay, well,
we'll figure that out later.
Yeah, we'll do something nice for Grace, because, you know, 1, Grace is awesome. 2, Grace is pretty. 3, Grace is probably going to kick our ass at some point, and she's more than capable of doing so. So we're going to do something nice for Grace, you know. Those are 3 things, and the last one scares me just a little bit. So,
yeah. And one more thing before we sign off. I tried to upload this entire, I think was successful. The QuickTime Player thing to YouTube was successful, but since my computer froze, I couldn't get the entire show. So instead of doing that, I gave our fans a little teaser just by creating a YouTube segment called Preseason versus Courtland Sutton. And I did link your video for the entire show on Draft Evolution, but I just gave our fans a teaser on my YouTube channel. So I apologize for that, but it might end up working out better.
yes, get on your knees. Buy me a beer.
And I really want to talk about the running back.
You know, TJ, that's something we're going to have to do next preseason.
I feel guilty for being an a-hole of Penn State because we talked about Marcus Allen before Saquon Barkley. That's disrespectful of Barkley.
Well, here's the thing. We've still got another round of player profiles to go. You know, preseason profiles, preseason, whatever you want to call it. I named it. I can't figure it out. You know, it's preseason reports. Yeah, we still got another round of those to go. And we're probably going to have one on the running backs. Yes, Barkley's there. I know I called Allen the best player. I guess more astute to call him the best player Penn State has on defense. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about this, you know, off the air. We got a lot going on with the Evolution Network, and I'm going to try to find time to get back to Draft Evolution. I know I've been neglecting the page quite a bit since we started the Evolution Network, but we're going to get back to that hopefully sometime in the near future. And so I want to just say, if you like the video, feel free to like and share. Leave a comment. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. You know, tell us that we sucked. Tell me that I have a voice for shutting up. Hey, it's all good. You know, and share the video. Share your dislike. Let people watch it. We're not going to mind that. You know, and for TJ, for Chris, and for everybody at the Evolution Network, I'm Joseph Potter. And we hope that you guys can have a good day, have fun, and take care.